Hi all, good evening. This is Saif here, and in this video, we would be covering SQL transformation. Now, the name itself suggests SQL, so in this transformation, we can execute all the SQL queries. Let's try to see how. Now, SQL transformation can be active as well as passive. We'll see how, and it can be connected. So, as an active changes the number of rows that passes through this transformation. That is the first definition. Does not maintain the transaction boundary and does not maintain the row type. So we have seen this definition. Now SQL transformation is a connected transformation used to process SQL queries, and where in the midstream of a pipeline. We know we have a transformation called source qualifier, which is always attached when my source is a table or relational flat file. So when my source is a table, I can write all the SQL queries pertaining to from where the respective source table is coming. So if it is coming from SQL Server, I would be writing all the syntaxes which are matching to the SQL Server. And the same goes with different database like DB2, Netezza, Greenplum, and so on. Now in this SQL transform, and if there any requirement comes, if you want to write SQL queries in between of the mapping, let's say I have source qualifier, expression, sorter, and then a need arises, then I need to achieve something through SQL queries. That is where this transformation, that is SQL transformation, comes into picture. That is in the midstream of a pipeline. We can insert, update, delete from the database using this transformation. Now, the SQL transformation also processes external scripts or the SQL queries. We would be seeing couple of modes like query mode and the script mode. So in the script mode, I would be demonstrating this. Okay, so the following things can be performed in the SQL transformation. All the DDL statements, data definition, all the DML statements, data retrieval, data control, and transaction control. So you can perform any of these activities in the SQL transformation. Now how to configure? So there is mode. Mode means in which mode you want to configure, either in a script mode or query mode. We will see both the modes. We have the facility to make this transformation as an active or passive. By default, it's an active transformation. That's why it's written active over here. Database type. So we would be writing these queries with respective to database. So we need to keep in mind the syntaxes need to match. And as we are connecting to the database, we need to provide connection. So this is about SQL transformation theoretically. Let's try to implement it practically with these two modes, script mode and query mode. I've already imported my source and target structures, and I would directly start creating the mapping. Now let's say my source is customer underscore source, which we all know and which we are familiar with. So this is SQL, that is the query mode we would be using, query mode example. So this is my source, and let's bring in my target table, that is SQL transformation. So I've already imported target table is SQL customer department. So let's try to bring this over here. Now let's try to maximize this transform target table. So by evaluating, I can see all my ports which are coming from my source are available in my target table. So this is a straight map. But I can see these are two extra columns which are not coming from my source. So after analyzation, I came to know these two columns belong to department table. Now there are various approaches to populate the data for these two columns. I can import the department table, use a source qualifier override query, or else I can use a joiner transformation, or I can use a lookup transformation also, connected and unconnected both. But as we are demonstrating SQL transformation, let's try to see that over here. SQL, and this is query mode. Once you say here, it tells you query mode or script mode. We would be going with query mode. And here you can say SQL transformation will run in passive mode. So you have to specify that. Which Now this department table belongs to which database? So at the moment it is Oracle. If in your case it belongs to Teradata or Netezza, you can pick the appropriate database. So the first part is done. Let's bring all the columns from the upstream, similarly from the down. So if you'll see, all these columns have an output port. Let's connect these two. Now these are the two remaining ports which we need to populate the data. So double click on SQL transformation, go to the ports tab. Additionally, one thing what you have to do is, this is SQL inputs. If you can see over here, just scroll it down. Here you can see SQL output. So the first thing is I need to add two columns in output ports. Let's add those two columns. The first one is department name. So data type would be nvarchar, something we can give, or we can give nvar anything. Let's give a size of 50 so that data is not truncated, and same goes with location as also. Let's go to nvarchar2 and give a size of 50. So thing is done. And if you can see, I'm providing the data types. So this is native data type, native type. So in SQL transformation, one additional thing what you have to do is, for the appropriate columns, here the data type are there, you need to provide the native type. So I'll go for double to number, string to varchar2, string to varchar2, string to varchar2, double to, let's go for number, string to go to varchar2, double to go to number, date time you can go for date, then again now. So this is salary, you can go for number or of precision and scale, it's your call. Even if you go for number, that's fine. Department number of number. So all the columns have been provided by the native types. Here you need to write a small query. Select what are the columns? Dname, and then another column location. From which table? From department underscore source, where my department number equals to. Here you need to provide parameter binding. So just double click over here and you can see parameter binding. So this is the column. So just do a double click over here and it comes over here. That's it. Your job is done. Let's say OK and appropriately connect these two columns. Beautiful. Let's save this. Check your mapping is valid or not. Mapping is valid. Copy the mapping name. I'll be creating a new workflow. And let's say this is the SQL, and let's create a task that is a session and appropriately link to your SQL transformation mapping, which is a query mode. So this is done. Let's link this, do a double click, and as usual routines. Source is from my staging schema, target is from my star schema, bulk to normal. We are inserting the data, no update, no delete if there is any data. So before loading, truncate it. Now SQL transformation. So this is running your query to a respective database. So from none, select the relational, and the department is in my staging schema. So appropriately assign that. Now if you'll see, if I'll execute my target table query, there is no data. Let's run this and let's see what happens. So the workflow is being executed. It is executing, successfully succeeded, 11 records read and 11 records written. Let's run this query now. Now we are getting the data. So this is the data of my employee or customer table, and these two columns like dname and location is the data of my department table. So this is how your SQL transformation with query mode would work. Now let's see another mechanism with a script mode. What I've done is go to your source files. Now in the source files, there are three files which I have already created. The first one is DDL, data definition. If you'll see, I have written a create table syntax, create table name, followed by three columns with their data type, precision and scales. This is the first, and after that I have written one DML statement. So I'm inserting three records into that table. And the third is, in this I have written the two file names with the absolute path. the entire path. So if you'll see DDL and DML. So let's try to see that. So let's try to import. I've already imported this, but just for your understanding, I'll just try to import this again. Import from file. Let's go to the all files. So my file name is this. Just copy this. Do not skip the things because there are only two lines which you would be reading. It's a comma separated. So here it's field. Just give any name and just try to give the maximum size so that data is not being truncated. Let's say finish and replace this. So this is my source as a file. Now target, whenever you use script mode, there are only two columns, error and result. What I have done is I have gone target, I have said create, give any name, say flat file. Once the flat file is done, double click, go to the columns, add two columns and name them error and result, and also try to give the maximum length. So this is how your source structures and target structures would get prepared. Now let's start designing the mapping. So my source is this. Let's give a mapping name. This is my SQL with script mode. And this is a script mode example. So this is my source. Let's bring in my target. SQL. This is the flat file as a target. So now let's try to add a SQL transformation. And this is with script mode. So in spite of query, now I will be taking a script mode. And if you can see, there is only one port which is being read, that is the script name. And depending on that, we would be passing either the result or an error. So just save this mapping. Mapping is good. Copy the mapping name. Let's go to a workflow and create a task, that is a session. And you know all this, the same routine properties. So this is with script mode. Let's do a double click over here. Source is coming from my staging. No, here it is a flat file. Just cross check. So this is a path and this is a file name. Beautiful. Target is also going to the, so target is also a file. So this is going at this path, and let's rename this. So let's say this is SQL script underscore ff and .txt, I can say. Let's run an SQL script. So the scripts would be hitting to a database. So where you want that table to be created and the records to get inserted. So in which either into staging schema or star schema, appropriately assign the connection. I want in my star schema, that is in target. So save this. Now coming over here, so if I'll execute this query, there is, so it will say table or view does not exist. So let's try to run this task and it should create that table and also insert the records. Let's see what happens. Beautiful. 2 records read, 2 records written. And if you'll go over here, let's go to my target files. So script, so this is the file which has been created. So either it will have result and error. So the result is passed and this is also passed. So both the lines have been passed. So that has been successfully executed. Now let's try to run this query. So if you'll see, a distributor table has been created and 3 records have been inserted. So with this, you can call the external scripts either through a DDL, DMLs or whatever into the transformation with the help of transformation called SQL. So this is about SQL transformation. It's active transformation and connected. So we have seen both the method, that is the script mode and query mode. It is mostly used in between of a pipeline. In between, if a situation arises, then you need to achieve through some queries. You can always go with the SQL transformation. And all the DDL, DML statements you can execute over here. So that's it from my side. So this is Saif signing off from this SQL transformation video tutorial. And please practice this. Thank you.